In our last episode, we dealt with a lot of sheet metal. We will start with the rest of that process. First, it was time for some inner fender material to hold some things up and to protect some things. So we're using 14 gauge steel for this inner fender for strength, but it's a bit thick for our sheet metal bender. Therefore, we take the cutoff wheel and we actually just cut slits along pre-marked lines to partially cut the material so that we can just bend it by hand and fit it much easier than fighting it too hard because it's too thick. Then we'll just weld the seams when we're done. We have this side belt tacked together, tabs in place, checking tire fitment. Looks like we got plenty of room, even for our dream larger tires. Cool, and I tripped. Project was to line the inner side of the walls with paneling. My lovely wife and my girls came in and they used a bunch of cardboard to figure out a bunch of side panels on the buggy, and I've taken all those panels and drawn them here on our thin sheet of aluminum to cut these out. So now I'm going to cut them out and they'll come back and probably be able to just fit them and drill holes and such for panels, to take them on and off, whatever we call that. Tabs. We're getting ready to build an exhaust system. This thing has a set of the Off-Road Solutions 5EZ swap headers. With the left-hand side output, we'll have to tightly run it across along the lower piece of the frame between there and the floor. We're going to use a flex coupler, catalytic converter, and actually a glass pack. That's about all that will fit, which is our flex here, our catalytic converter to satisfy the Toyota computer, and then our cool glass pack there. Glass pack will mount here, just behind the transfer case. And then we do have a challenge of getting the exhaust up and hooked over this control arm to exit the back. We'd like it to be free and clear of the passengers altogether and exit the rear of the buggy. So it's going to be tight, but we'll make it work. Right now we have the rear suspension fully compressed up in the air, so we can just build that exhaust as it'll have to fit for full clearance. We built a skid plate for the middle underside of the buggy because I'm sure we will try to conquer rocks that are just too big. Next, we're going to weld this up and smooth the edges before we do drag it over things. So we grabbed a 4Runner rear heater box, mounted it to the firewall, cut some holes in the firewall, and installed heater hoses. Now we have a little bit of heat in our buggy. We've also made some strap steel based mounts for the radiator, kind of a radiator support in the front of this thing. We did actually set it up for dimensions of a Toyota V6 85, 95 type radiator. In case we ever need a replacement to drop in, we'll be close at least. We did tilt the radiator a bit to try to get clearance. And for that reason, we had to build a custom fan shroud. And here is that fan shroud. Our next step was building a winch mount into the chassis. We used our trailer winch to mock this up. We just cut the main door tube that was a solid tube out of the buggy. Originally we thought it'd just be a climb in the window kind of thing. But after a lot of thought, deliberation, family, and different people I'd like to take out, realized we'll just make some real strong doors with some solid hinges and attachment points. So we've cut this tube out of here now and cleaned everything up. We're gonna use some heims and 4 points to make a nice strong door here. The other side hasn't been cut yet for comparison, so that's what we started with. Well, we've started to make some doors here for the front. First step was cutting the old tube out, and then in its place fitting a shorter version of the old tube with the heim at each end. We plan to have a second tube, probably mirror image, across the bottom here, and the two will be attached, and that'll be one door, with just opening of pins on the back side of it. Done the same with the other side at this point, so next we'll move on and build the lower portions. The tunnel over the transmission and transfer case needed to be covered. We used thicker steel here for passenger safety. We made a mount for the power steering reservoir, the PSC pump. And now we're in the middle of building an intake in 2 3/4 stainless. We just have a straight through silicone coupler to get that onto the throttle body. We're using the older style 5EZ MAF down here, airflow. We have a silicone reducer that'll bring that to a 3-inch, which will slip over the mass airflow. And then we have bought a filter, just a universal filter that'll clamp on the other end of that, pretty simple. Talked about clamping it, fastening it to this tube because you don't want it just hanging off the engine. But we've decided to use the 2 mount holes in the MAF. They're further down the line. It would just be less stuff hanging off the end of the bracket, less chance that these silicone couplers would be encouraged to slip loose. So now we'll build a bracket utilizing these 2 threaded holes to the inner fender we have built here to support this end of it with some sort of rubber or flexible bushing. We'll also need to get the vacuum diagram out and figure out how many vacuum ports we're going to need in this tube. We know we need at least 1 for the PCV vent. We'll just do a quick little research, and then we'll add those vent fittings in there too for the vent hose and any other vacuum we need. Okay, we have mocked up our intake system entirely. We have a couple of vacuum tube ports tack welded in place. We got all our silicone or tubing cut, and we have a bracket that secures the whole thing to the to a piece of tubing via the airflow meter and a rubber grommet. our next episode, we will be assembling and starting and driving and wheeling the buggy for the first time. There will be a lot of hands on deck, a lot of work done, some setbacks, and some victories. We hope you will join us. It'll be a real hoot.